Hi.
Hi, good morning. We're just waiting for a few more people to join in. Give us another 2 to 3 minutes and then we'll start the webinar. Thank you. For those of you who have joined in, could you let me know what grades the students are in? Shreya, Ranjit, Priya, Pranshu, anyone, if you could let me know what grades?
10th.
10th grade. Okay. So are you planning to write the PSAT this year? Or are you planning to start the preparation for the English SATs?
Means I have not planned. I'll get the information, and based on that, I'll take a call. What would be the right time to take the test? Maybe this year or next year, how it goes. No, I
Mhm.
get to
So
know the subject.
I think a good thing would be to start the English practice as soon as possible, because what we've realized is that our kids are very good at math. They somehow seem to get the math scores, but they struggle with the English component. And also the English is slightly different from what they're doing in school.
Yes.
So, we'll share with you at the end of this webinar, I'll share a reading list, which is a good reading list to help you prepare for the SATs. But more important would be to pick up critical thinking skills. So not just reading to skim through content, but reading to understand how the author is using the language, what is he trying to say. Um, and I think as parents, we can really help our kids in this critical thinking process by reading the same articles and questioning them as to, what is their opinion? Why do you think the author said this? What was he trying to achieve when he said this. So a lot of those things, are things that we as parents can help the students in, especially the English component. I would say start as early as possible. Building in great reading habits, or doing participating in debates or MUNs. All of these things really help set up a strong base for the English component. All right, I think we are good to start. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining in on a Sunday morning. My name is Guneet, and today we are going to be talking about the SAT and the ACT exams. The idea here is to understand a high school student's journey from 9th to 12th and how these exams fit into their academic path. What could they be doing at various grades? So in this webinar, you will learn the few things that you as parents and students need to plan and prepare for in this college admissions journey. And then we'll do a little deep dive into these two exams, the SAT and the ACT, and we'll show you how we at Revisor can help you with the tools that we've built. Right? First of all, a little bit about Revisor. We are a high school learning support company. So we work with students worldwide to help them, achieve academic goals. So we work with students as early as grade 8, and we work with them all the way up until grade 12. So we largely help them in two main areas. The first one is test prep, where we help and coach with SAT, ACT, IELTS, APs. And the second area is academic tutoring. We provide coaching for students in the Cambridge, which is IGCSE, ASNA levels, and IB across various subjects. Right? We've been in this space for 8+ years now. We worked with more than 4,500 to 5,000 families. We have students from across 8+ countries. We have offices in Gurgaon, and we are headquartered out of Bangalore. Now, let's try and understand the undergraduate college admissions abroad versus India. Why do the students even need to take the SAT or the ACT exam at all? Now, in the US school system, it's very similar to our the PU system that we have in India, right? There's a core curriculum which is defined by the Education Board, and each state chooses how they want to conduct the curriculum. So what happens with this is, this results in varying levels of expertise in each subject, making it very difficult for universities to gauge a student's caliber. So they don't have a standardized national curriculum like we do in India. Like we have the CBSE and the ICSE, where everyone writes the same paper. So when we say 97% in physics, every college knows what that means, right? Therefore, the universities in the US, they needed to level the playing field, right? So they collaborated with two companies. One is the College Board, which conducts the SAT, and the ACT.org, which conducts the ACT. Now, both are not-for-profit organizations, and they designed these two tests where students are assessed in math and English. The aim being that every student should know at least this much English and at least this much math to be able to take on a college level course. So the score you get helps the universities assess your ability to take on particular college level courses. In India, we have very clear cutoff scores. So if we say that, okay, in the science department in St. Stephen's, the acceptance score was 98%. Now, if you got 98%, you got in. If you didn't get 98%, you didn't get in, right? Of course, there are other parameters also, but largely there is an academic score, which is what you need to, on the basis of which you will get admission. In the US, you don't have any clear cutoff scores. You will have a range of scores. So if certain universities have accepted people in the last year in a particular course in this range. So the SAT score was this range. Of course, there are multiple other things. And for your SAT scores also, when you say the range, within a university, For different courses, there may be different ranges. So for example, if you're applying for engineering in Georgia Tech, there will be a certain score range. But if you're applying for another course in Georgia Tech, there might be a different score, SAT score range or ACT score range that they're planning to take it. Right? Now let's understand what are the colleges really assessing. So when they review your application for admission, they generally look at 4 key areas or 4 main areas, right? The first is, of course, and the most important is your academics. They're very interested in your overall academic performance. So in India, colleges are mainly interested in your 12th grade final board exam result, right? International colleges will look at your grades from class 9, 10, 11, and 12. And they'll be looking at they're looking at your academic performance over a period of 4 years. This means you need to start focusing on your academics early, because colleges will want to see how you've improved, right? So before we look at any other standardized test scores, your academics is very important. If your academics is not in place, then nothing else matters. You could be getting perfect 1600 scores. They won't even go to that level. They will immediately on the basis of academics. So academics is very important. So the second thing that they're interested in looking at is standardized scores, which okay, in India, we have competitive exams based on the field you're planning to apply to. So for example, if you're planning to do engineering, you'll probably look at giving the JEE exam. If you're looking at medicine, you'll give NEET. For law, it's CLAT and so on, right? But outside of India, it's different. They've got this one standardized test, the SAT or the ACT. It's not like you have to pick one based on your major. You can go for any one of these tests. You don't have to take both. So whether you are applying for economics or finance or engineering or medicine, you are still taking this one exam, right? So that's the standardized test is the other thing that they look at. The other thing that they pay attention to is your profile. Now, what do we mean by profile? It's basically how you show the college who you are as a person, what major area of study you're really interested in pursuing, and what have you done in that space outside of school academics that can showcase your interest. So it's not like you have to start, there's no checklist that you need to start ticking. It's just that, so for example, if you're interested in computer science, have you created an app? Have you written a white paper? Have you done something with your interest in computer science to solve a problem that was there in your environment? And it doesn't have to be something major. It can be something really small. You could even be teaching a bunch of younger students computer science, or you could have made an app to solve a problem that your apartment complex was having, or your villa complex was having. So it could be something very small, or if there was an issue with the school and they wanted some help in creating an app, or some competitions you've taken part in. So outside of academics, what have you done? Colleges are interested in seeing your extracurricular involvement related to your intended field of study, right? The other aspect, which is of course, the application process, and there are multiple things in this, shortlisting universities, completing your applications, getting your letters of recommendation, writing the essays. But the most critical of this is your application essay. Beyond your test scores and grades, essays provide a window into your personality. What are your passions? What are your aspirations? They've basically given you a platform where you can showcase to them your unique identity, right? Essays also humanize your applications. They'll allow the admission officers to connect with you on a personal level, right? So your essays are really an opportunity for you to stand out and to make a lasting impression. So, you can demonstrate your potential to and also your contribution to the college community, right? So basically, that platform you need to use well, and I would say invest the time and effort required into crafting these compelling narratives that will authentically reflect who you are, right? So this is what your college application process is going to look like, right? And out of this one aspect is the SAT and the ACT, either one, whichever one you're planning to take. So let's have a look at academics. Of course, like we had mentioned, will continue all through your grade 9, 10, 11, and 12. Profile building, again, whatever it is that you're interested in doing, you will be doing across these 4 grades. What you could start off with in grade 9 is your PSAT prep. A lot of students write their PSAT in grade 10. You could also start off with your SAT and ACT English prep in grade 10. A lot of students complete this while they're still in grade 10. Grade 11, we would recommend that you complete your SAT and ACT prep and write whichever exam you're planning to write. It's ideal if you finish both your tests within your grade 11. US citizens have an opportunity for an additional scholarship, which is called the PSAT NMSQT, and we will talk a little bit about that later as well. You can take this exam you need to take this exam in the October of grade 11. So that's something that you would be doing in grade 11 if you're a US citizen. And of course, students who are planning to write their APs and send in their scores with the applications will need to write their APs in the summer of, the time between grade 11, at the end of grade 11. So if you're an ISC or CBSE student, you will write it after your grade 11th while you're in early 12th. If you're an IGCSE IB student, that's around the same time as your 11th grade exams in the month of May. In grade 12, there are some students who have not yet completed all their attempts. A lot of students take their second attempt at the SATs in grade 12. And of course, then you should keep your grade 12 for your college applications. Believe me, the process is quite comprehensive. I mean, writing your college essays, there are some universities which have almost, Stanford, I think Stanford alone has some 10 to 11 essays. And you're usually applying to 8 to 10 universities. So that's going to be a very comprehensive timeline. So ideal to keep your 12th grade free for your college applications. Of course, after that, you start your college post that. Now, the focus for today's webinar is going to be the SAT and the ACT exams. So let's do a bit of a deep dive into the SAT exams. The SAT exam is conducted 7 times a year, and the next one is scheduled to happen in the month of October. The next one is in November, December. Then we have an exam in March, May, and June. Then again, August, of course, we just had an exam on 24th of August. So these are the 7 months. ACT is also conducted 7 times in a year. While you're permitted to take the exam multiple times, there is no limit on how many times can you take the exam. They haven't set a limit, but we would recommend that you don't take more than 2 attempts. It's advisable to take 2 attempts. If you're aiming for one of the most, the really selective competitive colleges, some students might take a 3rd attempt to improve their score. So if they're at a 1550, then they might want to try and improve to reach a 1570 or in 1580. But ideally, keep it to 2 attempts. Now, so the colleges have varying preferences when it comes to standardized scores. How do they want to see your scores? So some universities will ask you to submit all the scores for the SAT or ACT attempts that you've taken. So if you've written 2 attempts, they want to see all the scores. There are some universities that will ask you to super score. So that means they'll say, pick your best English score and your best math score across all the tests you've taken and submit that. And some universities will say, submit only your best score, but in a single exam, right? Now, you would have heard some terms like, some universities are test optional. This means that the student can choose to submit their test scores if they feel that it is strengthening their application, but they don't have to do so. right? So test optional policies really came into play during the pandemic, when tests couldn't be conducted everywhere easily, right? Then you have the test blind universities. In test blind universities, these scores like the SAT and ACT are not going to be considered during the admission process, and these scores will not influence the decision making process for the admission. So universities like the UCs are test blind, right? And some universities mandate that you have to take either the SAT or the ACT. They will not accept your application without a test score. And these are the more selective universities, universities like MIT, Yale, Georgia Tech, Dartmouth, Brown, and now even Harvard has become test mandatory. So the decision to take these exams depends on the policies of the universities to which you're applying, right? So if you don't have a final college list ready, it might be a good idea to go ahead and take the SAT or the ACT. If you try and take it last minute, you may not be able to get your potential score. As an international student, it's always advisable that you go ahead and take the SAT and ACT. That is, of course, you would only if you can get a good score, right? Unless you have a reason to say why you haven't taken the SAT or the ACT, right? So, but if, for example, if you know that you already have a college list ready and none of those universities require the SAT, if they are all test optional and you don't want to take it, you don't have to take it, right? It's only if you're still thinking and deciding that I would say don't wait till the last minute. Also, another aspect to note is that the acceptance of the SAT and ACT digital scores, they extend beyond the United States. So many other countries, including Singapore, Canada, Australia, even India, recognize and accept the SAT and ACT digital scores, right? So now let's look at the structure of the exam. The test, as you know now, is a digital exam. You have the flexibility of using your own device. You can bring your laptop with the necessary software. The College Board conducts the exam on a software called the Blue Book app. You need to install this from the website onto your computer. You can attempt the test on your own laptop. It's a very friendly interface. It has a clock for time management, so which is there on your screen throughout. You have you can easily navigate between questions. You can flag questions and come back to them later. So you have all your math formulas in one place. So it is a very comfortable interface, but the thing to note here is that you cannot take your exam at home. You have to go to a test center to take the exam, right? So the digital SAT is notably shorter when you compare it to the ACT. The digital SAT lasts for about 2 hours and 14 minutes, and there's a 10-minute break between the two sections. Let's have a look at the the exam structure. So there are two sections, English and math. In the English section, there are two modules. Each module has 27 questions. So in the English section, you'll be doing a total of 54 questions, right? So module 1 is 27 questions. You'll have 32 minutes to complete this module. So you'll have a total of 64 minutes to complete both the modules. So 54 questions in 64 minutes. It gives you approximately 1.19 minute per question. It's a crucial figure. We'll come back to it when we are looking at the ACT. For math also, there are two modules. Each module has 22 questions. So you'll be answering a total of 44 questions. And each module is for 35 minutes. So you'll have two modules, so you'll get 70 minutes. So 44 questions in 70 minutes to complete the math section. And the SAT allows you about 1.59 minutes per question. Again, an important figure. We'll come back to it when we are discussing the ACT. The score for each of the sections is from 200 to 800. So English is out of 200 to 800, maths is between 200 to 800. The total score, the combined score that you will get will be out of 400 to 1600 points. I I would say aim for above 1500, because this, especially for those who are targeting, the top universities, it typically corresponds to around the 99th percentile. All right. Now let's look at each of the sections in detail. In the SAT reading and writing section, your comprehension, language use, writing skills are being put to test, right? You will come across varying academic and literary passages, and you'll be answering questions for them to gauge your understanding. So the test segment has craft and structure, which focuses on vocabulary and text evaluation. You have information and ideas, where you interpret various texts and graphs, right? There'll be a pictorial image out of which there'll be a few questions, there'll be one question asked. Then you have expression of ideas, which is largely refining written expression. And you have standard English conventions, which is basic rules of English grammar, the usage of these rules, and punctuation, right? If we look at math, the section can be broadly categorized into four main areas: algebra, which will have linear equations, inequalities, system of equations, problem solving techniques. Then you have problem solving and data analysis, which covers topics related to data interpretation, like ratios, rates, proportions, unit rates. Then you have advanced math, which includes quadratic and exponential equations. And you will, you okay. So about 75% of the questions will be multiple choice, and 25% of the questions, the student has to solve the question and come up with their own answer, which will be which you need to put down there on the thing. So not all of it is multiple choice in the math section. Now, another thing to understand is that the digital SAT is section adaptive. Now, what do we mean by section adaptive? So in each section, like we had mentioned earlier, there are two modules, module 1 and module 2. So everyone gets the same level of difficulty in module 1. Now, how well you do in module 1 determines which version of module 2 you will get, right? And let's say you do very well on module 1. And again, I'm taking random numbers here. College Board doesn't disclose the algorithms. Say you do well on module 1 and you get 16 out of 20. Right? Now, you will get a version of module 2, which is going to be more challenging. But that's good, because it is potentially taking you to a higher score range. So, you could score between 680 and 800. Now, on the other hand, scoring low in module 1 will get you a version of module 2, which will be less challenging and which will be easier, but it will take you to a score range that might limit you. So you might get only 440 to 560, right? So even if you get all the questions correct in module 2, you cannot score more than a 560. So doing well on module 1 is critical for maximizing your overall score. Now let's look at the ACT, right? The first section on the ACT is the English section, which is very similar to the grammar section of the digital SAT. But there is a notable time difference here. You are allotted 45 minutes to solve 75 questions, giving you approximately 36 seconds per question. Now, if you remember, the digital SAT gave you 1.19 minutes per question. So though the ACT questions are more straightforward and they have a very direct style of questioning, you have to solve many more questions in a shorter time frame, right? So you have to be very quick to solve these questions. What you need to ask yourself is, are you someone who is okay with more questions in less time? Or are you someone who doesn't mind doing complex questions, but with more time, right? What are they testing in this section? They're testing usage and mechanics, which is grammar, punctuation, sentence structure, and so on. Basically, you must know the English language and you must be able to implement these rules correctly. The second, of course, is rhetorical skills, which is your big picture ability to make sure that the passage of writing flows and it makes sense, right? If it effectively communicates a point. Next up is the ACT maths section. You're given 60 minutes to do 60 questions, giving you roughly 1 minute per question. If you remember, in the digital SAT, you got 1.59 minutes, right? So in ACT, the time has been reduced almost by about 50%, right? What are they testing? Two broad categories, algebra and geometry, trigonometry, right? But the difference here is content distribution, particularly in geometry and trigonometry. Here in geometry, trigonometry, you will have almost 27 to 28 questions which come from this area. So almost 45% of your paper is geometry and trigonometry. On digital SAT, if you remember, it was only 15%, right? So the digital SAT is algebra heavy. ACT is spread out equally between algebra and geometry, trigonometry. So this means if you're someone who is very comfortable with algebra, you might want to look at the SAT because it's 85% algebra, or vice versa. You know, if you're not comfortable with algebra, you might want to stick to the ACT. The other thing here to note is that all questions are multiple choice. There is no student produced response here, right? The third section in the ACT is the reading section, where you're given 35 questions, which you need to, you're given 35 minutes, you need to solve 40 questions, giving you about 52 seconds per question. The ACT reading is very similar to the SAT, testing similar skills within comparable timeframes, but there are two major differences to see. Firstly, the structure of the passage differs. In the ACT reading section, you will have one long passage followed by 10 questions. You will have a total of 4 passages. Passages are taken from different genres: prose, fiction, social science, humanities, natural science. But in the SAT, you don't have long passages. They feature shorter paragraphs and you have to analyze them in the same time frame, right? So if you remember, it had 27 questions, right? So you have 27 paragraphs to read, right? The second difference, and the more important one, is that the digital SAT content is dense. The questions tend to be more intricate and nuanced, which requires deeper analysis and critical thinking skills. So in comparison, ACT reading passages and questions are more straightforward and simpler, right? The fourth section that you will come across in the ACT science section is the ACT science section. Now, many students and parents, often worry about this, thinking that I'm not good at science, so maybe I shouldn't take the ACT. Or I want to pursue STEM, so maybe I should take the ACT. Let's clear up this misconception. In the ACT science section, you won't be tested on your knowledge of scientific concepts, right? Instead, you will read a science-based passage and answer questions based on the passage. It is very similar to reading comprehension, where you're analyzing the passage which has been provided to you. Being familiar with the content definitely is an advantage, but it's not necessary. In this section, you'll typically see between 6 and 7 passages. Each passage is followed by about 6 to 7 questions. You'll get about 52 seconds per question. And passages will also be from varying science genres. So there will be passages from physics, bio, chemistry. But you need to answer the questions based on the information provided in the passage. And you cannot use any scientific knowledge from outside the passage. So it's pretty much reading comprehension, right? There in this science section, there are definitely more graphs, there is more tables, it's more pictorial. So someone who likes to work with graphs and images will prefer this passage, these kind of passages. Next is the ACT essay, which is an optional component, right? It's scored separately on a scale of 2 to 12. You'll be given one prompt. You will have 40 minutes to write an essay. Basically, they're assessing your ability to analyze a complex issue, develop a clear perspective, and support your idea with relevant evidence, right? While it's optional, it can provide colleges with your an insight into your writing skills and your thinking abilities. So this is so choosing between the SAT and the ACT can seem daunting, but there are factors to consider, that can help you make an informed decision. Firstly, look at your own strengths and weaknesses. The SAT tends to be focused more on reasoning, critical thinking skills. ACT is more content based and has a more direct style of questioning, right? So see which one works for you better. Secondly, look at the timing. So the SAT gives you more time per question, which can be beneficial if you need extra time to think through your problems. ACT is faster paced, more questions, less time. So if you're good at working quickly and efficiently, the ACT might suit you. If you find math difficult, it might be a better idea to take the ACT. See, on the SAT, 50% of the portions is math. On ACT, it's 1 out of 4 sections, so only 25%, right? So it's a much smaller section. Now, the SAT overall, if you look at it, is much shorter. It's 2 hours, 15 minutes, whereas the ACT is almost 3 hours long. So it has an optional essay. Now, if you're looking at the optional essay as well, it becomes, 3 hours plus 40 minutes. So basically, you need to evaluate that which format really plays to your strengths and your weaknesses, your preferences, right? What we recommend is it's best to take a diagnostic test for both the exams. See which one feels more comfortable, gets you a better result, right? Ultimately, the best one for you is the one that showcases your abilities effectively, which one can you score higher on, right? So following the webinar, you will receive an email containing a registration link for free digital SAT and ACT diagnostic tests. Please take the test at your convenience. Don't take both in the same day. Assess your current standing and determine which test is more suited towards you, suited for you. Now, these are full-length diagnostic tests. They're not those 10-15-minute tests, because how you answer a question when you've been sitting down for 1 hour 45 minutes is very important. For an ACT, after how you answer a question after 2.5 hours is very different from how you would answer it in the first 15 minutes. So that will help you evaluate, give you a more realistic evaluation, right? Now, if you want, you can book a one-on-one consultation with us, and we'll be happy to take you through the report to help you decide which test is better suited for you. This is a free consultation. The diagnostic test and the consultation is for free. You don't have to pay anything for this. This is just to help you understand which test is better suited for you. Now let's talk about the PSAT. We had mentioned this earlier. The PSAT is a preliminary SAT. It's a shortened version of the SAT exam. It's conducted once a year by various schools. So if your school does not offer it, you can see which school in your city conducts it and register there as a private candidate. The next question is, should you even be writing it? Is it even required? So there are many reasons why someone might want to take the PSAT. So some students might take it because, there are some summer schools which are very competitive, and if you want to get into them, they might ask you for a PSAT score. For other students, I've seen someone might just want to take it to see how well prepared they are, which I think is not bad, because like I was mentioning when we started the webinar, is that the English section can be quite complex. It will help you understand what is the kind of time and effort you need to put into it. It helps you understand that if I want to take this exam in grade 11, what is the kind of reading, what is the kind of critical thinking I need to set up a base for. So it gives you a reality check. Definitely it works. For the students who are US citizens, they should take, there's an exam called the PSAT NMSQT. That's it's a qualifying test for the National Merit Scholarship, which needs to be taken in the October of grade 11 for an additional scholarship that you could possibly apply for other than the college scholarships that you'll be getting. This exam does not decide it. It's a qualifying exam. There are a couple of other steps. And then, so for those students, we definitely recommend that you should take the PSAT and MSQT for US citizens. For the rest, like I mentioned, if you're applying for a summer school, if you want a check to see, only then you need to take it. It's not mandatory, though most schools today advocate that you do take the test, largely because they want you to understand the kind of work that you will need to put in to get a high score. Another exam that I want to talk about are the APs. So what are the APs? APs are college level exams that you can take in high school. But these exams focus on a specific subject, right? Now, for example, if you want to showcase to the university your excellence in, say, biology, or say economics, but you haven't taken those in your high school, how would you go about showing it? The AP exam, earlier, College Board used to have these exams called the subject SATs, but that has been discontinued. So if you want to showcase your expertise in a particular subject to a university, you go ahead and take the AP exams. These exams are exams, this has the curriculum which you would have done in your first semester in college. So when you take those exams, you're showcasing your strength to a university in a particular subject. So there are almost more than 30 exams that College Board offers. But the thing to know is that these exams happen once a year in the month of May. If you're an IB or Cambridge student doing IGCSE, AS, A levels, these will clash with these will happen at the same time when you're having your final exam. So proper planning is very important. Make sure you are, if you're planning to take them and send them with your college applications, you will need to do that in the month of, you will have to do it while you're still in grade 11. So let's talk about why do people even need to take these exams, right? Who are the students who might want to take these? So one of the primary reasons that students want to take the AP exams is to stand out in the college application process, right? Now, academic performance is a given. It's a basic expectation. Colleges assume you're already doing well. So to stand out, you need more in your profile. And this is where the AP exams come in, right? You can also do this to earn college credits. They are college level courses. If you take them now, you can score college credit. You will get college credits for this. We have a webinar happening on AP at 5 o'clock in the evening. So if you want to know more about APs, we're going to be talking purely about the AP exams and how you can, what subjects to do. How do you choose? How do you decide whether you need to take the APs or not? If any of you are free, we'll put down the link in the chat box. If any of you want to attend, you can attend that in detail. Getting back to here, like we said, you can take your APs to earn college credits. It saves you on tuition fee. Also, it lightens your load in the first semester because it allows you to skip some introductory courses. So your first semester becomes lighter. A lot of students will, because your first semester becomes lighter, you've taken some courses before you go in. It allows you to add an extra minor to your degree. You can also graduate early. A lot of students also take it because it opens doors to scholarships, right? So if you're taking multiple exams, AP exams, and you do well on them, you can earn the title of an AP scholar, which strengthens your college application. And it improves your chances of receiving a merit-based scholarship, right? Some students also might end up taking it, to compensate a bad score. So for example, if you've not done very well in your math exam in grade 10, right, but you're actually good at math, you can take an corresponding AP course. So you can take up AP calculus, or you can take up AP statistics to show the college that the low score which you got was an outlier, and you're actually very skilled at mathematics. This will help reduce the negative impact on your college applications, right? So that's one of the reasons why students take it. Another reason is if you have not taken a subject in high school, but you plan to pursue that as a major, then taking an AP exam in that subject might help. So for example, you're a science student and you want to do finance or economics as your major in college, but you haven't taken up economics in 11th and 12th. So then taking up the corresponding AP microeconomics, AP macroeconomics, all of that will help. Or if you've taken a lower level of mathematics, you should take calculus, AP calculus BC, if you're planning to do economics, because that is required. So there you can showcase your strengths. So basically, if any of these points make sense to you, then you might want to take an AP exam. Like we said, we have a webinar this evening focusing specifically on the APs. If you're interested, do attend that. Now, getting back to the SAT and the ACT, let's discuss our pedagogy briefly. We divided the program into 4 main phases. We start with a diagnostic test to see which exam is more suitable for you and to see where you stand currently so that we can recommend the correct program for you. Phase 1 will have online tutoring sessions, again, approximately for about 40 hours for English and for maths. And each of these sessions is 2 hours, followed by assignments, which is again around 3 to 5 hours. Phase 2, you will start doing your you'll do your section tests and your practices. So you take a test. Based on your scores, you will be assigned work or practices that you need to do to bring your scores up. There will be a dedicated program coordinator or a mentor who conducts these online meetings to assess, your areas of strengths and weakness. Based on this, the mentor designs a personalized study plan and to address your specific needs. So if required, they will send you back to classes or they might say put remedials in place, sometimes even extra one-on-one sessions with the faculty. Phase 3 focuses on full-length practice tests. Again, we would want you to complete at least 10 plus mock exams before you go for the first attempt. The mentor continues to monitor your progress and will keep adjusting your plan accordingly to make sure that there is improvement happening. All these phases take place on a digital SAT platform where students have access to comprehensive practice materials and experience a similar style of questioning as in the actual SAT exam. Now, the programs that we offer various modules to cater to different needs. So we have the full SAT or the ACT training program. Again, these can be done in batches or one-on-one. If a student requires, so based on your, you take your diagnostic test. Now, if a student requires only math or only English, those programs are also available. For some accelerated students, we also have a self-paced program that provides, you'll have lesson videos, self-paced exercises, mock exams. It basically gives you a comprehensive checklist to make sure that you haven't missed any aspect of the test. We also have programs where students can only do mock tests on our digital platform. So we basically customize options to suit specific requirements, right? In the past, our students have gained admissions to some of the top universities across US, Canada, Singapore, and the UK. Our students have achieved impressive SAT scores with the highest reaching 1590. We have an average of about 1450. Similarly, in the ACT, the highest scores has been 36, with an average ranging from 30 to 36, right? Now, of course, these remarkable achievements reflect the effectiveness of our program in preparing the students for success in these exams, resultantly securing them admissions to prestigious institutions worldwide. So that's what I had to say mostly. Now, if any of you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them up. I'll start with the questions which are there in the chat box. And once we are done with those, you're free to kind of unmute yourself and ask the questions as well. At the end of the session, can you also cover if the UCs are test blind and what are the parameters? Okay, so UCs are test blind. They are not interested in knowing your SAT scores at all as of now. And what parameters do they use? Okay, so that is something that I think you should be asking your college admissions counselor. We are not college admission counselors. If you want, you can fill out a form here that in your chat box. We'll post a form, fill out the information that you require. I can send you the numbers we have many partners who do college admissions. So I'll be more than happy to send you 3 to 5 numbers and you can call them up and speak with them and they'll be happy to help you around with college admissions. Will we have this recorded session available for later viewing? Yes, we will. We can send you a YouTube link if you want. Can you please fill out the form which is there, and then that will help you. Okay, Priya has a question. Preparing for the PSAT is a stepping stone towards the SAT. See, there's not much difference between PSAT and SAT. It's a talent hunt finally. They're looking for students who are ahead of the curve, who are ready for a scholarship, right? Now, when you take the PSAT, like I was mentioning at the beginning, it's the English part which is reasonably challenging. So if you take the PSAT, I think it helps the student understand what am I expected to, what am I expected to kind of deliver for my SATs. So I know we hear from all students that when we speak to them and say, okay, what score are you aiming for? That everyone says, I'm aiming for a score above 1550. 1550 means that you're making 1 or 2 mistakes out of the 100 odd questions that you'll be doing. That means, have you set the base specifically in English? They are testing the colleges are testing what you've been reading and how you've been reading over the past 5 to 6 years. There is no silver bullet here. There are no 3 books that you can solve end to end to get your scores up. This is not math, right? SAT English is the complex one here. Now, when they do the PSAT, it's almost a eureka moment for them to say that, oh my God, this is the kind of English that I need to know. And believe me, about 30 to 40% questions, even 50% questions, you will end up getting right. What about the rest? It is tough. It's not easy. So when the students take the PSAT, it does help them come to a mindset where they say, okay, and if they take it early enough, if they start preparing for this in grade 8 and grade 9, what happens is that you still have 2 years to build your reading quotient, to read articles, to start building your critical thinking skills. So in that aspect, I think the PSAT does help a lot. I hope I've answered your question, Priya. Would you advise a 9th grader to take? Okay. Would you advise a 9th grader to take the diagnostic test now only for the English portions? I would say not the math, because they'll get overwhelmed. It does require 10th grade math. So I would say avoid the math portion, but definitely the English portion. In fact, we have started a base builder program for grades for 8th graders, 9th graders, 10th graders. This is largely to help them set that base. So see, ideally, it would be if you can pick an article, give it to the children and say, okay, let's have a dinner discussion about this article in the evening. The aim here is to say, read beyond the passage for the student to understand, because, for them to understand that when you read a passage, everyone has different takeaways, right? And I think this, and what are your takeaways? And that discussion after reading the passage is what promotes critical thinking skills. They start evaluating your opinion, or if there's 3-4 of you sitting at the dining table, I put forward my viewpoint and they assess 2-3 other viewpoints. That's when they start questioning and they start saying, okay, why did you think like this? What do you think when the author said this? Why would you think he meant this? And then you ask them those probing questions. That is the ideal scenario, right? But now we know everybody is working and there are so many challenges and things, boxes you have to tick. Sometimes it does not happen at home. I mean, I've tried it with my kids and so many other battles to fight. Sometimes this does not seem to be the most important thing. If you have the bandwidth, that's the best way to go about it. Where can you take articles from? I would say mix it up. The Hindu has very good English language, good articles you'll find there, the newspaper. Pick up one international newspaper. You could pick up the Asia Wall Street Journal or anything, or New York Times. They have free articles. You can just download the article and you could use that. There's a very good National Geographic is a good magazine. American Scientific is a very good magazine. If you want, I can send you a list, a reading list. Just fill out the form at the end, and I'll send you a list. We can send you a list of a reading list, which will help. I know kids are not reading a lot of books, so even articles is good. Get them used to audiobooks if you can. Most kids are in the school bus for about half an hour to 45 minutes. If they're allowed to have their phones, that's a good thing to kind of get started on. I know I started reading a lot when I switched to audiobooks. So if you have the bandwidth to do that, it's great. Otherwise, we've started a base builder program, which is once a week they will sit with us, a faculty, to start building a little bit on vocabulary, reading comprehension, just helping them think beyond a reading passage. This is all targeted towards the SAT, right? We are not doing SAT training, but even when they start reading articles, these are the skills. So it helps them think beyond, because the teacher who's conducting it will kind of go a little bit beyond and ask you questions. And it's an interactive, engaging session. It's not something which has a lot of homework and things like that. You're doing a lot of the work within the class when you're doing this. So this does help. In case you want information, just reach out and I can do that. I would like to have a meeting to discuss. Absolutely. Please just fill out the form and we'll be more than happy to, I'll put my numbers here as well. Here are our numbers. You can just call either of these numbers and we'll be happy to kind of fix a meeting for you. What are the recommended books for AP Physics? Again, if you want, I can, Jivitesh, I can get you a meeting. Please fill out the form. I'll get you a meeting with our AP Physics faculty. Usually we would say, the closest one to the exam, I usually find Princeton Review a very good resource. College Board also has some exams. They have some, there is an entire program available on the College Board website if you want to enroll in classes or if you want to do any of that. We have our own programs where we take students through them. But if you're looking specifically for a book, you have, so the big players in this space is Princeton Review, Barron's, Kaplan. I prefer Princeton Review because I've realized that it's the one perhaps that's the closest to the exam usually. So I would recommend that, but either of these three are good books. Okay, hi, my daughter's in grade 11 CBSE board. She's interested in psychology, biological sciences. We are also keen on universities in Ashoka Christ. Okay, while taking the AP exams for incremental subjects and the SAT help in the admission. This, again, a question for your admissions counselor. If you just fill out the form, we will give you numbers of some people who are working in the admission space for India and abroad, and they will be able to help you, make those right decisions. It's a slightly longer conversation, right? What subjects do you have in high school? What subjects do you plan to major in? Like CBSE, taking APs in the same subjects will also help. It does boost your application, but will it be relevant for CREA and Christ? I think an admission counselor is the best person to speak to. While the information that we have will be very secondhand, and I don't want to give you, information which might lead to an incorrect direction. Also, the policies of these colleges change frequently. So best to speak with someone whose full-time job is to be updated with this information, and we'll share. Please fill out the form and I'll share these with you, the numbers of these people with you. Is AP in English literature and communication helpful for getting exemption for TOEFL? I would not say so. For the colleges, I've realized these things do help, but for immigration services, it can be challenging. In fact, even if you have done A levels in English, I know of people who have been stopped at the Indian immigration because they don't have, and they've not been allowed to go to the colleges because they don't have an IELTS or a TOEFL. So I would recommend that you don't replace them more for immigration purposes than for college admissions purposes. We have the link for the AP webinar here. Again, the form is also here. If you have any questions or if you need any further information, just mention your details and mention what you require and we will send it to you. Please add the link. We have added the link. What is the highest SAT or ACT score for the last year by your institute? Okay, the highest I think we got last year was, I think, 1580 or 1590. I'll have to look it up. ACT, fewer and fewer people are taking it now. The ACT format is changing. The highest again for us was 35 last year. 36, we got more when we had offline students, because it's very easy to catch hold of them and make them sit down and do the practices. Online becomes a little more challenging because students sometimes are not able to put in the kind of work required for 36. So now getting a 36 is a little more challenging, but if it's a very driven student, I mean, see, from our training, it's the same training irrespective of what your score is. From the same training, we've got students who will get 1590, and we'll have students who'll get who'll get 1200. It's all about the effort that you're putting in. So, okay, please share the presentation. It has great information. Yes, we will. We have a YouTube link. I'll send that to you. The presentation is there as we are speaking about it. I'm preparing for the November 2nd. Okay, so when would it be possible to start the classes? I think you're already quite late. It takes about, it depends on actually what is the caliber of the student. So like, we may say 30 to 40 hours of classes, but that's only classes. If you really look at the entire journey of the student, it's about 200 to 300 hours of work the student needs to put in. So how soon can you put in the work is what I would say. See, the classes are 30 to 40 hours. About 50 to 80 hours is just the home assignments in phase 1, right? Because they're teaching you concepts and test taking strategies. So you have to solve the questions using those techniques in class, right? Then you will do section tests, which is about 5 to 7 section tests for each, which is 10 to 14, 15 section tests. Each test is about an hour. Now, based on that, you will put in how many errors you're making, will put in the remedials, could be about 3 hours of work required between each section test to fill the gaps. That itself is 45 hours. 10 mock tests means 2 hours, 15 minutes per test. So that's 20 hours there. Again, the remedials could be another 60 hours. It all depends on how many mistakes you're making. If you're making 1 or 2 mistakes, very less remedials, it can happen much faster. You don't need to do all 5 section tests. You don't need to do all 10 mock tests as well, right? You could, I mean, some of my highest scorers do about 4 to 5 tests, but they do crazy amount of analysis. Your analysis is 80% of your work by the time you're in phase 3. So it's all about plugging the gaps rather than taking more and more tests. So tests are largely there either to help you with time management if you're struggling with time management, or to give you a check to say, okay, here are the topics, the data that it throws up for you, that these are the topics I need to go back and revise. That's where your work is happening, right? So I would say, like I mentioned, my highest scorers my highest scorer actually did it in less than a month. But if I look at the caliber of my high scorer, she was preparing for the NEET exam. She was also the Tata Literary Award winner for the best essay in India. So for her, the gap was very little to fill up. So she could do it in less than a month. And she improved about 500 points because when she was again a CBSE student, not used to the format. I think her digital score, her SAT score was only about, I think 980 or something, but then she went on to a 1590, right? So it all depends on the caliber of the student. My son is in the 10th grade. When should we start for the SAT or the ACT classes? Okay, the ideal time, if I have time with someone, what would I say? Finish off your SAT or the ACT English portions while you're still in grade 10, right? SAT English, make sure you plug in the gaps, finish all the classes, finish phase 1, right? Finish the section test also if you can, while you're still in grade 10. As soon as your 10th grade exams happen, start with your math portions. Best is if in the summer vacations, you can finish your math portions, finish your phase 1 exercises, finish your section tests. Now your English and math both is done. In the summer vacation, start doing mock tests. So by the time school starts for you in grade 11, you've pretty much done 80% of the work. And then you're just doing 1 or 2 tests per week. And then you can give the exam whenever you're hitting your ideal test score. That's what I would recommend. right? I hope I answered your question, Sachin. If there are any more questions, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask those questions. I'll be more than happy to answer them.
One more question. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. So you also mentioned about the PSAT 11, right? The national merit. My son is an American citizen. We are staying
Okay.
here in India.
Okay.
So, one of the recommendation is you said that he should take the SAT exam in the by October, right? 2025. So next year, right?
When he's in grade
But there is
11.
yeah, when he's in grade 11th, right?
Yeah.
But we also have the PSAT 11, which is the national.
No, hold on. So is he in grade 11 now?
No, he's in grade 10.
Grade 10 now. Yeah. Sorry, say you have the PSAT 11. So no, if he's a US citizen, let him take the NMSQT. Let him prepare for the regular SAT exam. And then he should appear for the PSAT NMSQT. So if your school is a center for exams, please speak with your school coordinators. If not, find out in your city on the College Board website. You'll be able to, write to them. You'll be able to find out which are the schools which are having the SAT. Wherever the SAT exam is being held, go and apply for the PSAT NMSQT exam.
Okay.
That's what you need to look at. And that's what you should kind of be giving. If he's a US citizen, that's the exam you should give. But prepare for the SAT specifically. So they're looking for high scorer. It's a talent. So you should definitely do that.
Okay. So basically SAT and this one. Is the NMSQT and PSAT 11 same, or is it
no, it's different
tests?
Best to write to College Board and find out, and I'll send you the number or the email ID of the SAT India coordinator. And you could shoot out a mail to them to find out, mention what city, where are you based out of?
Pune.
So best that I'm mention to them that you're in Pune. Where can you take, which is the center where it can happen? How do you register? They'll give you all the details. They are pretty responsive to emails. Within 2 to 3 days, you will hear back from them with all the details.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah. Perfect. All right.
Thank you.
Hi. I just want to know that if, so to take the PSAT, you should just prepare for SAT, like basically take your SAT classes. Is that what you're advising?
Yes.
Or is there a separate kind of support system? So then
depending
at the
on
end of 2 years. Yeah.
Depending on which
my daughter is in 9th grade right now.
Okay. So SAT English, I don't see much of a difference. I think the hardest level in PSAT is not equal to the hardest level in SAT, but pretty much what they're testing is very similar. I don't see a difference between the two. So I would recommend, don't spend on PSAT training separately and SAT training separately. Just take SAT English training for PSAT.
Okay.
The math portions, definitely you have to look at. Math portions will be different. Definitely look at them. And the SAT is a little above the 10th grade portions. So you need to complete 10th grade portions to be able to do SAT.
Okay.
Right? So that jump needs to be done. Also, please remember, whenever you're speaking to anybody, whether it's us or any other agency that you're speaking to for SAT training, find out, SAT training they will teach you SAT maths. They're not going to start teaching you maths, basic maths. They assume you have the basic math in place, and they're teaching you questions and material relevant to the SAT only. So the pacing is decided accordingly. If you have a student who is weaker in maths or who's at a junior class, don't sign up for the SAT math program. I would say take per hour classes where, the faculty is sitting with each topic. If they need to go back 5 steps, they're willing to do that, right? To
so
walk
for
back
PSAT,
the 5
you're
steps.
recommending that?
Yeah, look at the level of the student. And if a student is, say, 99% in math in school, definitely they're going to find PSAT easier, the SAT math easier. But if they are at a 50%, you see similar scores in math also. You're not going to see. And so while the College Board exams look very easy, the actual exams are much more difficult than that. So I would say take all of that into cognizance and see this entire effort that you're making. The colleges will only see the SAT score. They don't see the
મારું કામ છે
PSAT
આપણી
scores at
વસ્તુ
all.
નથી આપણે આપી દેવાની તમે આપી
Can you mute everybody, please?
રોજ રોજ હિટકોમ નહીં કર તારા હેર ઓલરેડી સ્ટ્રેટ છે
Okay, I
વધારે
see.
ફ્રીઝી થઈ જશે આ બધું યુઝ કરીશ તો
Sorry,
નેચરલ
guys,
સારા ને વાળ રહેવા દે નેચરલ
Tanish, can you please make everyone mute? I think somebody has unmuted themselves, not realizing. Amazing. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. So I would say, so the colleges do not see your PSAT scores. They will only see your SAT scores. So unless you're applying for a summer school or something. So I would say make the effort towards the SAT, but definitely I would say start with the English early enough. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, thank you. It's just that, yeah, it's for a summer school that I
Yeah,
looking
if
into
you,
the PSAT for
yeah, so
grade
then you should ask
Mm.
them also which PSAT they want. Are they looking for PSAT 10? Or are they looking for, you know, we should be getting ready for the correct exam.
Okay, okay. I couldn't find your number. You said you've shared it. I didn't see it in the chat. If you don't mind, once.
It's on the screen. It's on
On
my
the
screen right now.
Oh, okay, all right. Thank you.
There is a form, you know, there is a form
did that.
in the chat box. Just write down that I'd like a consultation or a meeting, and then we'll kind of just fill out that form.
Done.
Because the chat will disappear. We don't have your numbers and all in the chat, but that form is there. I think she's reposted the form.
Thank
Just
you.
fill that out.
Thank you.
And okay, any other questions? I think there was one more question that I saw in the chat. Just give me a second.
I had asked about the fees.
We'll
How
send
is
you in the brochure that we'll send you. See, the fee is very different from which program you're looking at, right? So we'll send you a SAT handbook. The last 2 pages has all the various modules of the SAT we have, and it has a description of each module, and it has the fee related to each of those modules, depending on which module do you really want to do. Yeah.
Okay, and how much hours of classes are there for ACT?
Same, 30 to 40 hours.
30 to 40 hours also.
Also,
Okay,
please,
understood.
I think one of the things that I need to mention is that the ACT is changing its format. So if anybody who's planning to take the ACT, please be done by all your attempts by December of this year, because the exam format is changing. And normally, I've realized that it takes about a year for everyone to get the material and everything in place. You know, we need to see a few tests which have happened, get feedback from the students to see what material is relevant and what is irrelevant material. So I would not recommend that you start taking the ACT in the next year. If you plan to take the ACT, finish off all your attempts by December of this year, because next year onwards, they're changing their format completely.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. But my son is in 10th grade at this moment.
Yeah, then I would say avoid the ACT for the next 1 year at least. I mean, if he wants to train, we can start training him, because the format, I mean, see, the concepts you can start training, right? That won't change too much. But the format will change. So the exam taking strategies, how do you answer, the time management, all that will change.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Yeah. Should we also purchase Princeton View books for the SAT English or Maths, or do they have an official guide as well? There is an official guide. Again, it depends on where. So for the SAT, they have tied up with Khan Academy. So I would say that is the best material. It is for free. There is some material out there. I think it's slightly on the easier side. The tests are a little more complex than that. But instead of purchasing books, I would say go and start practicing on Khan Academy. That is the best place to start all your practices. Right? Would it be possible to start classes for the SAT if I'm already well versed with the SAT portion, such as revision classes? Just for recap, I'm currently there. Yes, absolutely. So we have programs where you can just take the material. There are lesson videos and there are question and answers. There are section tests. So you can just complete that completely by yourself. If you want, for when you're solving the material, if you want just 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours classes, only to do doubt clarification on the areas where you're getting stuck, or if you say, okay, I'm stuck with this one topic and I want to do that, we customize end to end. We don't recommend unnecessary tuition if it's not required. I mean, there are so often where we see, when we take the diagnostic test, we'll see somebody who has a score of 750. I will tell them, please, no math coaching required. I would rather recommend a book, order it from Amazon, practice. If you get stuck somewhere, buy 2 hours or 3 hours for doubt clarification or just doing a topic. You don't have to do, I mean, it slices off 100 hours of work clearly from your plate. I mean, I would not recommend coaching where it's not required. So definitely you can do just revision classes. If you already have an idea of the topics you want to revise, you just sign up for those classes. If you want material to practice as well, then you will have to take practice, and it's a per hour charge, right? You can pay for just 5 hours or 10 hours, and then accordingly, whatever does not get utilized will get refunded back to you. There's no problem with that. Sure. Please fill out the form, Mr. Chandra and Mr. Pranshu. I will definitely send out the details of whatever you require. Super. Any more questions? Great, then we'll wrap up today's session. Thank you to each and every one of you for your active participation and engagement. We've covered a lot of ground, and I hope you found this information insightful and valuable. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, like I mentioned, our numbers are there. Please feel free to call us and book a consultation. We'll be more than happy to take you through through any details. Thank you for joining. Goodbye.